Chapter 546. Approved? An outsider, are you sure? I can't be completely sure, but I would say, at least 90 confident, Emperor Golden Snake replied solemnly. Temple Master Iceberg pondered for a while before shaking his head as usual. Even if he's an outsider, a life-death duel with him won't be easy for you. I know, and that's why I came to find you, my senior. Emperor Golden Snake turned his eyes toward Temple Master Iceberg. Folding his eyebrows, the latter became silent and did not offer a swift reply. Senior, I was lucky enough to obtain a jade slip during an opportunity once. Emperor Golden Snake inhaled a deep breath before he slowly explained. There was a message in that jade slip. It mentioned the Ancient World Token. What did you just say? Temple Master Iceberg, who had been sitting upright on his throne all along, suddenly stood up. A strange expression flickered faintly in his eyes. Emperor Golden Snake was not at all surprised by Temple Master Iceberg's sudden change of attitude. He was fully aware of the attraction which the Ancient World Token had for the latter. Senior, you didn't hear wrongly. The message in the jade slip indeed mentioned the Ancient World Token, Emperor Golden Snake affirmed. Quick, let me have a look at the jade slip, Temple Master Iceberg implored. With no hesitation, Emperor Golden Snake waved his hands and took out a jade slip which he passed to Temple Master Iceberg. .bg container 63275cc1f display. Flex direction, column align items, center justify content, center Z index, 214-748-3647. Important. After receiving the jade slip, Temple Master Iceberg transmitted his consciousness into it and immediately received a message. Emperor Golden Snake simply stood where he was and waited in silence. There was, however, a confident smile on his face, which grew into an unconcealable large grin by the time Temple Master Iceberg came to his senses a short while later. Golden Snake. Temple Master Iceberg looked down once more. I'm keeping this jade slip. As for the life-death duel, I'll immediately send word to the other Temple Masters to do me a favor. They can't refuse when I'm asking in my personal capacity. Thank you so much, Senior. Emperor Golden Snake became overjoyed at once. All right then. You should head back and prepare. Temple Master Iceberg waved a hand. Yes, Emperor Golden Snake acknowledged before he turned and departed. Left alone in the palace, Temple Master Iceberg was ecstatic. Ancient World Token. Time flew by in the blink of an eye. At present, it had already been 10 days since the massacre of the demonic beasts. Within these 10 days, the East Camp was completely stabilized, and most of the sergeants who were lost in the battle had been replaced. At this moment, 2 figures swept forth from a void near to the campsite of the 7th Army. One of them was Emperor Xianxia, who had previously bestowed the token of the 4th level of the Earth Core Palace to Jian Wushuang. The other was Emperor Xianxia, who had used his hands to hold back Emperor Golden Snake. Sigh, I'd personally prevented Emperor Golden Snake from killing Jian Wushuang in the past. Little did I expect that I would be in charge of announcing this matter now. Emperor Xianxia heaved softly with an unpleasant look on his face. I never imagined that Golden Snake could actually find a way to make the 17 Temple Masters approve of the life-death duel. Emperor Xianxia frowned as well. He certainly wouldn't have had the capability to do so on his own. My guess is that Temple Master Iceberg supported him and asked on his behalf, said Emperor Xianxia. Temple Master Iceberg is one of the top 3 experts among the Temple Masters of my Monster Exterminating League. The other Temple Masters would usually agree to any request he makes. And most importantly, Jian Wushuang is an outsider. That's right. If he wasn't an outsider, it wouldn't be possible even if Temple Master Iceberg intervened. Emperor Xianxia sighed. All right, enough talk. We're here. Emperor Xianxia looked down toward the campsite of the 7th Army. Jian Wushuang. Emperor Xianxia and Emperor Xianxia were still standing abreast on the void when the former's voice could be heard below. Jian Wushuang, who had been studiously meditating the 6-story pagoda restriction in a tent, immediately stepped out and appeared on the void upon hearing the voice. Emperor Xianxia, Emperor Xianxia. He respectfully bowed to the 2 men he saw. He was grateful for the help they had given him in the past. However, They looked back at him with rather complicated looks in their eyes. Jian Wushuang. Emperor Xianxia opened his mouth slightly but held back just as he was about to speak. After a long while, he sighed and said, Temple Master Pure Moon ordered me to send word that Emperor Golden Snake's proposal for a life-death duel with you has been approved by 17 Temple Masters. What? It has been approved? Jian Wushuang could not help feeling surprised. He had believed that it was practically impossible for Emperor Golden Snake to gain the approval of 17 Temple Masters. But alas, it seems that I've underestimated Emperor Golden Snake. One has to be quite capable to make 17 Temple Masters approve of the life-death duel. Jian Wushuang muttered. Emperor Xianxia continued, according to the League's rules, the life-death duel must go through now that it has the approval of 17 Temple Masters. However, considering that you're only a Saint Realm expert, the disparity with Emperor Golden Snake's level is too huge, and so you'll be given a month to prepare. When a month's up, the showdown between you two shall take place in the Bloodshed Valley. A month. Jian Wushuang nodded to himself. To give him a month to prepare showed that the Monster Exterminating League was not too unreasonable. Now that I've conveyed what I was ordered to, I shall leave. Emperor Xianxia turned and departed as soon as he finished speaking. However, Emperor Fengxiao was not in the same hurry, and instead came up beside Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. Emperor Fengxiao looked at the latter with a slight smile. Emperor Fengxiao. Jian Wushuang humbly acknowledged. You amazed me during the Divine General Assessment in Heaven Wing City. But now, you have amazed me even more. Emperor Fengxiao laughed. Already feeling the pressure of the life-death duel with Emperor Golden Snake that takes place in a month's time. Yes, a little. Jian Wushuang nodded his head indicatively. A life-death duel was different from a typical fight. In a typical fight, he would be able to escape even if he could not defeat Emperor Golden Snake, and so he would not be the least bit worried about the latter. But in a life-death duel, someone had to die, and that would be him if he was weaker than his opponent. There's no way out. None of the Temple Masters sided with you after the League found out you're an outsider, Emperor Fengxiao said. Jian Wushuang could not help laughing bitterly upon hearing this. He finally understood that his background affected the Temple Masters' feeling toward him, and thus explained why they gave their approval. You can't change the fact that the life-death duel has been set. It's too late even if you think of escaping now. Unless you flee to a territory occupied by demonic beasts and never return to human territory, that is. Emperor Golden Snake alone won't scare me away. Jian Wushuang laughed easily. What a joke of a suggestion. While in the Divine Land, he had safely emerged from an encounter with an entire bunch of super experts and above from the Cloud Realm, who were equivalent in level to the Temple Masters of the Monster Exterminating League. Emperor Golden Snake was merely a normal emperor and thus was not going to scare him away. Chapter 547. Attainments. Jian Wushuang, let me remind you not to underestimate Emperor Golden Snake too much, Emperor Fengxiao suddenly quipped. Oh. Jian Wushuang looked in surprise at him. He has always kept a low profile among the 108 divine emperors, such that everyone considers him to be the weakest among them. However, nobody knows how strong he really is. After all, he has never fought a life-death battle, whether against humans or demonic beasts, Emperor Fengxiao noted. I have had some dealings with him. Even though we've never fought, I always felt that his strength wasn't as simple as it looked. He might have exchanged blows with you before, but I can assure you that he wasn't using his full strength. Jian Wushuang's gaze became slightly fixed upon hearing this. He never imagined that Emperor Fengxiao would give such a high estimation of Emperor Golden Snake. In any case, the outcome of the life-death duel in a month's time will depend on your skill. I have two things here that should assist you somewhat. Emperor Fengxiao took out a jade slip and a purple golden fruit which gave off an enchanting fragrance. What are they? Jian Wushuang looked doubtfully at the two items and was in no hurry to receive them. This jade slip contains some of my Tao attainments, and also many occults from the water drop sword principle which I meditated upon. It'll be helpful as a reference for your Tao meditation. Emperor Fengxiao added, this is called a soul fruit. I obtained 2 of them by chance during my time wandering the monster territory, and have already consumed one. A soul fruit is a very special natural treasure and can be used to elevate one's soul. I'd only ever awakened 2 sword souls, but after consuming the soul fruit, I awakened a 3rd. As for your sword souls, they're very peculiar, or should I say, frightening, but there's still plenty of room to grow. The soul fruit will definitely be useful to you. These words jolted Jian Wushuang's heart. .bg container 63275 CC1F display. Flex direction, column align items, center justify content, center Z index, 214-748-3647. Important Emperor Fengxiao's Tao attainments, occults from his meditation of the water drop sword principle and the soul fruit. These things were not just useful but extremely useful to him. But why was Emperor Fengxiao willing to give him such precious things? Previously, Emperor Fengxiao had also unconditionally given him the token of the 4th level of the Earth Core Palace, which was extraordinarily valuable and incomparably well regarded among the divine emperors. Jian Wushuang had asked himself why the former took such great care of him even though they did not have a pre-existing relationship. Take them. Emperor Fengxiao held the jade slip and soul fruit in front of Jian Wushuang and smiled. I was greatly inspired by your display of swordsmanship during the divine general assessment. If not for that, I might never have mastered the sword movement which I painstakingly studied, and I would never have made such a fast breakthrough regarding the bottleneck that was troubling me in my sword principle cultivation. You helped me a great deal. These are my gifts to you. Jian Wushuang only now understood that the swordsmanship he displayed during the divine general assessment had inspired and thereby helped Emperor Fengxiao. That explained why the latter would be so caring toward him. Thank you so much. Jian Wushuang expressed his gratitude before less courteously accepting the items. You have a month to prepare. Go and get ready. I wish that you'll get through safely. Emperor Fengxiao glanced at Jian Wushuang and made his leave without saying any more. Jian Wushuang made his way down to the campsite, where Qinghua came up to him as soon as he landed. Brother Wushuang, what happened? Qinghua frowned. I'll be fighting a life-death duel with Emperor Golden Snake in a month's time, Jian Wushuang replied. How's that possible? Qinghua was astounded. How did Emperor Golden Snake gain the approval of 17 Temple Masters for it? They only approved because Temple Master Golden Mountain personally intervened and the Monster Exterminating League found out I'm an outsider, Jian Wushuang answered. Temple Master Golden Mountain. Qinghua showed a slight change in countenance. Qinghua, I'm going to leave East Camp. All right. You only have a month, so go and get prepared, Qinghua solemnly said. Nodding, Jian Wushuang promptly went and applied to leave East Camp. The process was very simple and only took half a day. After handing over all of his responsibilities in the camp, he made a swift departure. A month may not be long, but it's also not too short. I must find a way to increase my strength during this time, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. The first thing he did was to find a private place where he could thoroughly study the jade slip that Emperor Fengxiao gave him. The place he chose was the Sky Solitude Mountains. The mountains were vast in range and had few passers-by. After finding a spot in one of them where he sat cross-legged, he took out the jade slip and began to look through its messages. The jade slip contained Emperor Fengxiao's Tao ideas and attainments, and also several of his thoughts regarding the water drop sword principle. It was a very diverse mix of messages. It took a long time for Jian Wushuang to look through all of the messages in the jade slip. So, this is what Tao is really like. There was a hint of enlightenment in his eyes. He had many long-standing questions about Tao as he had never come into contact with it and did not understand it at all. All he knew was that it was highly intriguing. In the Divine Land, for instance, Su Ming's illusory sword principle and Blind Emperor's heart sword principle were profound like none other. It was only now, having looked through Emperor Fengxiao's thoughts and attainments, that he understood. Tao is an evolved form of origin. When one's understanding of origin reached a certain level, the origin would evolve into the higher level Tao. This type of evolution had a very complicated process which could only be completed if one had unique understandings of and attainments in origin. For example, Emperor Fengxiao derived the water drop sword principle from his understandings of the water drop origin. But there were still things Jian Wushuang could not understand. According to Emperor Fengxiao, he combined the sword principle and water drop origin to develop the water drop sword principle, which I find a little odd even though it's a Dao. He frowned tightly. It seemed to him that origins were origins and sword principles were sword principles, that the two were completely different. The latter should purely be evolved from the former. Instead, Emperor Fengxiao's water drop sword principle was not a pure evolution of the water drop origin but required the addition and support of the sword principle in order to be developed. The water drop sword principle seemingly deviates from the essence of the water drop origin. Jian Wushuang shook his head involuntarily. Chapter 548. Soul Fruit. Jian Wushuang sat deep in thought. Emperor Fengxiao's attainments and understandings are extremely useful to me in any case. At the very least, I have a fresh understanding of Dao. Although I cannot readily agree with some of his ideas, everyone has his own Dao just as everyone has his own path in life. I just need to draw 1 or 2 lessons from his work. I have to keep doing my own study in order to develop my own Dao based on my own ideas. Without thinking further, Jian Wushuang inhaled a deep breath and took out the soul fruit. Soul fruit. A hint of anticipation appeared in his eyes as he gazed at the purple golden fruit, which gave off an enchanting fragrance. According to Emperor Fengxiao, this is tremendously effective at boosting one's soul, and a person can only consume one such fruit in a lifetime. I wonder what use it has for my sword soul. After murmuring to himself, Jian Wushuang opened his mouth and swallowed the soul fruit without hesitation. Upon reaching the stomach, the soul fruit transformed into a strange energy and moved toward the sword soul in the sea of consciousness. An incomparably sharp golden sword soul had been quietly floating in Jian Wushuang's sea of consciousness. However, it clearly became excited and began to tremble frantically when the strange energy appeared. It then opened what resembled a large mouth toward the energy. It took barely a moment for the golden sword soul to completely swallow the energy. .bg container 63275 CC1F display, flex direction, column align items, center justify content, center Z index, 214-748-3647. Important. Jian Wushuang immediately sensed that the golden sword soul was changing. What a wonderful feeling this is! He could feel that his sword soul was leveling up at an astonishing speed. Though it was already very sharp and powerful to start with, its golden radiance became increasingly dazzling yet. It took a long time before the improvement gradually ceased. As he looked at the golden sword soul in his sea of consciousness, Jian Wushuang could see that it was obviously a size bigger, and also more sharp and dazzling, than before. Just as some ideas sprang to his mind, the majestic golden sword soul phantom began to rise fiercely behind him. Boom! The golden sword soul phantom gave off a haughty, world-belittling, supreme sword essence as it made its appearance. For a while, it seemed to outshine the sun. There was a drastic change in the height and size of the golden sword soul phantom that just appeared. Originally only 18 zhong tall, its height was now an impressive 24 zhong. This meant that it was comparable to several large mountains. In Jian Wushuang's hand appeared the triple kill sword, which he flung casually toward the void ahead, aided by the majestic sword soul power. Swish! The void unexpectedly emitted a violent wind-breaking sound, and instantly, an immaterial sword essence wave swept forth with an extremely powerful momentum. Jian Wushuang's countenance changed and his eyes revealed a look of pleasant surprise. Ha ha, my sword soul has greatly improved and become more powerful indeed. It should be remembered that in a month's time, the life-death duel between Jian Wushuang and Emperor Golden Snake was, as its name suggested, a fight he would either win or perish in. Any improvement to his strength would be extremely important to him, not to mention improvement to his sword soul, which had such an obvious effect on his strength. Emperor Fengxiao has indeed given me a great gift. I must remember this favor. He thought to himself. Having gained a general understanding of Dao and a drastic improvement to his sword soul, Jian Wushuang immediately headed toward the holy place. In the monster exterminating pagoda of the holy place. The monster exterminating pagoda was the treasure vault of the Monster Exterminating League. All kinds of countless treasures belonging to the League were stored here, and they were all purchasable so long as one could pay enough monster cores. Jian Wushuang walked up to the counter. I need the 7th, 8th, and 9th cultivation levels of the bone fusion technique. Here are the monster cores to exchange for them. Jian Wushuang took out an interspatial ring. He had reaped huge earnings from the East Camp's large war and thus could afford 3 levels of the technique. However, he could not afford the monster cores needed for level 10. Wait a second. A white-robed elder at the counter went into the inner hall, but stepped out shortly after and handed 3 jade slips to Jian Wushuang. The higher cultivation levels of the bone fusion technique were more expensively priced. The 7th level and above could only be separately exchanged for, and so each level was accounted for using a jade slip. Jian Wushuang left the monster exterminating pagoda after receiving the 3 levels. He then found a place to begin cultivating them. The bone fusion technique was a pure body reshaping technique and was divided into 12 levels. The first couple of levels were easier to cultivate, but the later ones became progressively more difficult. It placed greatest emphasis on the body's foundation. Jian Wushuang's physical strength was unparalleled, while his foundation, forged from the heavenly creation skill, was all the more indestructible. It was easy to cultivate the bone fusion technique from the 1st to the 6th level, such that he ran into practically no problems doing so. As for the 7th, 8th, and 9th levels, Jian Wushuang found that cultivating level 7 was similarly easy, and he was able to do so quickly without a hitch. However, he had some difficulty beginning from the 8th level. It took him 2 days to complete the cultivation of level 8. Among the 12 levels of the bone fusion technique, every 4 levels constituted a volume. The 8th level was only a part of the middle volume, whereas the 9th was a part of the lower volume, which once cultivated would cause one's body to undergo a qualitative metamorphosis, and was more difficult. Half a month passed. This was the time it took for Jian Wushuang to cultivate level 9 of the bone fusion technique. In an uncared-for mountain forest outside the holy place, Jian Wushuang was standing half-naked under the scorching sun. Just then, his right hand clenched forcefully, and an explosive force formed in it. At the same time, his joints began to make a crackling noise. Hooah! With a groan, the fist, which had been gathering strength, smashed directly toward the void ahead. Boom! The world shook. The void, having been violently struck, turned into a storm. Jian Wushuang's eyes glimmered upon witnessing this scene. My body strength is at least 4 times greater than it was. This was the result of cultivating level 9 of the bone fusion technique. Not only did the strength of his body increase, but more importantly, its tenacity increased all the more absurdly. Rather than the effectiveness of the bone fusion technique, this could be attributed to a greater extent to the fact that Jian Wushuang's body foundation was too vigorous. It should be known that among the many divine emperors of the Monster Exterminating League, only 3 had cultivated level 9 of the bone fusion technique, whereas most of them had only cultivated up to level 8. Even the temple masters of the League mostly remained at level 9. Yet, despite being only a Saint Realm expert, Jian Wushuang had managed to cultivate said level. I'm starting to look forward to the life-death duel with Emperor Golden Snake. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes, within which a hint of battle intent rose. Chapter 549, A Life-Death Duel in the Bloodshed Valley. There were still 10 or so days to go before the life-death duel. Rather than idling, Jian Wushuang spent this time cultivating in Earth Core Palace. Jian Wushuang had used the greater part of the monster cores he obtained from the East Camp War to exchange for level 7 to 9 of the bone fusion technique. The remaining monster cores could barely afford access to level 3, let alone level 4, of Earth Core Palace. Hence, Jian Wushuang spent these days cultivating on level 2 of Earth Core Palace. The strength of the origin on level 2 naturally could not compare to that on level 4. Nevertheless, there was a substantial improvement in Jian Wushuang's origin enlightenment after the 10 or so days of meditation. Especially the slaughter origin. I've gained insight into 998 out of the 999 types of slaughter occults of the 6-story pagoda's first restriction. Only one remains. Jian Wushuang sat in the secret chamber with his brows slightly drawn. According to Di Jing, one would naturally pass the Dao threshold upon gaining an understanding of every slaughter occult of the 6-story pagoda's first restriction. However, Jian Wushuang did not see any sign of Dao enlightenment despite being only 1 step away. Di Jing's ancestors were almighty super experts outside the ancient world. He wouldn't lie to me. It seems that the final slaughter occult is the real key, he muttered. The final slaughter occult was the last step. However, Jian Wushuang could not gain insight into it despite meditating upon it. He thus understood that the final slaughter occult was a bottleneck. .bg container 63275 CC1F display, flex direction, column align items, center justify content, center Z index, 214-748-3647. Important. I now have a great understanding of the world origin and slaughter origin, way surpassing that of typical cloud realm experts. In fact, I feel that my origin enlightenment is enough to condense the 9th origin mark, which still doesn't show any sign of condensing nonetheless. He felt utterly helpless. However, what brought him more joy was that the triple kill sword made a breakthrough during his time in Earth Core Palace. The triple kill sword was a magic weapon of killing which was produced according to the heart-killing sword. Because of Leng Rushuang, it had been upgraded to a first-grade magic weapon early on in the Nanyang continent. Subsequently, its power continued to increase gradually to the limits for a first-grade magic weapon thanks to Jian Wushuang's adventures in the Divine Land and participation in vicious battles, throughout which he killed many experts. The opportunity for a genuine breakthrough was brought about by the blood of the demonic beasts which Jian Wushuang massacred using the triple kill sword on the Sky-Fire plains. Upon breakthrough, the first-grade magic weapon became a Dao weapon and doubled in power. The life-death duel should be starting soon, right? Jian Wushuang suddenly stood up and left the secret chamber. He started to make his way toward the venue of the life-death duel. In the bloodshed valley of the holy place. The place was so named because of the life-death duel. The Monster Exterminating League was an alliance formed by countless human experts whose aim was to work together to fight against the demonic beasts. Although most of these experts were very united, there was bound to be a few internal conflicts and rivalries. Some of these rivalries could absolutely not be diffused, and only ended in fatal fights. It was for this reason that the League established the life-death duel. Any expert under the command of the League, whether it be a divine general or a divine emperor, could apply for a life-death duel if he had an irresolvable grudge which could only be settled in a fatal fight. The duel could proceed as long as the League's highest tier of experts approved. It would then take place right here in the Bloodshed Valley. A month ago, news percolated through the holy place that one of the 108 divine emperors, Emperor Golden Snake, wanted a life-death duel with a mere Saint Realm expert, shocking a large number of the League's divine emperors and divine generals. Today was the day of the duel. Many of the League's experts were hurriedly making their way to the Bloodshed Valley. Lofty mountains surrounded the large and vast canyon, in the middle of which, however, was an extensive space for two divine experts to fight without restraint. Moreover, behind the mountains was a powerful restriction. This restriction was said to have been set up by two temple masters. Although they used minimal effort, it was impossible to break in a short amount of time even by a superior emperor. At this moment, levitating around the restriction were numerous experts who were looking through the transparent restriction toward the Bloodshed Valley. There was already a figure standing frostily on a void in the middle of the Bloodshed Valley. He was none other than Emperor Golden Snake. Gee, it's Emperor Golden Snake, one of the 108 divine emperors. Although life-death duels regularly take place in the Bloodshed Valley, most of them are between two divine generals. As for duels between divine emperors, an expert of this level is too valuable to the League's strength to risk perishing in duels, and so the Temple Masters wouldn't approve of duels between two divine emperors unless absolutely necessary. Divine emperors are therefore rarely seen in Bloodshed Valley, yet we see one today. It's a pity that the other contestant isn't a divine emperor but instead a feeble Saint Realm expert, and that it was Emperor Golden Snake who proposed the duel. This Saint Realm expert should be proud of the chance to fight a life-death duel against Emperor Golden Snake. In my opinion, Emperor Golden Snake is just picking on the weak. Isn't it a clear case of bullying for a dignified divine emperor to challenge a Saint Realm expert to a duel? I don't understand what those temple masters thought when they approved of it. I heard that Emperor Golden Snake only proposed the duel because the Saint Realm expert killed his son. There was an incomparable clamor outside the restriction as the divine generals casually chatted with one another. Opposite them were a few dozen figures who quietly levitated in the air. These were the divine emperors who had come to watch the duel. What a lively and crowded place this is today. Qian Wu, haven't you been hacking it in the monster territory? When did you come back? Elder Shu, you've always been this hermit creature that disregarded the outside world. Why suddenly the spare time to watch this duel? Feng Xiao, I heard that you have quite a good relationship with Jian Wushuang, is that true? The divine emperors too engaged in leisure conversations. There were yet more figures present in the uppermost void. These people were the temple masters who held the leadership of the Monster Exterminating League. Chapter 550. The Duel Begins. In all, 9 out of the League's 33 temple masters were present. The others apparently did not have enough free time to come spectate. There have been countless life-death duels held since the establishment of the Monster Exterminating League. However, this is probably the first between a divine emperor and a saint realm expert, right? The absolute beauty, Temple Master Pure Moon, said while bathing in the sunlight and radiating her incomparable warmth. A duel between a divine emperor and a saint realm expert does seem a little too much. A burly man who carried a giant axe on his back stood with his arms crossed and his crimson brows slightly furrowed. Although 17 temple masters had approved of Emperor Golden Snake's proposal for a life-death duel, there was a small number of temple masters, including this burly man, who disapproved. Temple Master Iceberg, this life-death duel is all thanks to you. I'm really curious as to what price Golden Snake paid you such that you willingly got off your high horse to plead with each and every temple master. From what I know, the relationship between you two isn't close enough that you would naturally put in so much effort for him. Temple Master Pure Moon glanced at Temple Master Iceberg with a strange expression. Golden Snake regards me as his master and has always paid me great respect. Why can't I lend him a hand? Besides, although Jian Wushuang has unparalleled talent, he's after all just an outsider, and it's a matter of time before he leaves Monster Continent. Should I have helped him over someone who has dutifully served the League? That does make sense. Temple Master Pure Moon nodded and said no more. Nothing could be done. Given Jian Wushuang's outsider status, the League's temple masters naturally had to side with Emperor Golden Snake even if to varying extents. Look, Jian Wushuang has arrived. Temple Master Pure Moon suddenly raised her head. Together with the numerous divine emperors and divine generals outside the restriction, the present temple masters raised their heads one after another and looked toward the valley. On the vast void in the Bloodshed Valley, a beam of black flowing light whizzed past and quickly revealed a figure not too far in front of Emperor Golden Snake. .bg container 63275Z1F display, flex direction, column align items, center justify content, center Z index, 214-748-3647. Important carrying the triple kill sword on his back, Jian Wushuang wore a slight smile on his face and crossed his arms. Jian Wushuang appears to be quite the confident sort, no? Temple Master Pure Moon was taken by surprise. Once he appeared in the Bloodshed Valley, the Saint Realm aura on his body began to spread without the slightest conceit. He's indeed only a Saint Realm expert. Although he's only a Saint Realm expert, there's a second-grade Divine General's token aura on his body. How's that possible? HMPH, what's so impossible about that? Don't you know that a month ago, there was a mass slaughter of demonic beasts in the East Camp, during which Master Jian revealed his strength to be much greater than that of second-grade Divine Generals? Yes, I just returned from East Camp and did hear about that. Jian Wushuang is indeed an incredible super genius. What a pity that such a super genius is about to die. Sobbing and sighing noises filled the area around the Bloodshed Valley. However, the restriction completely sealed them off from reaching the battlefield. This allowed the two men in the battlefield, Jian Wushuang and Emperor Golden Snake, to focus completely on the duel. However, noises from within the battlefield did transmit outward. It was quiet within the valley. The only noise was that of a gentle passing breeze. Jian Wushuang and Emperor Golden Snake stood facing each other at a distance of 100 zhong. Jian Wushuang's expression was indifferent and his eyes carried no emotion. Conversely, Emperor Golden Snake stared at him with glacial eyes that conveyed a heinous resentment. "You're pretty brave," Emperor Golden Snake spoke in the frostiest of tones. I'd thought you would flee to the territory occupied by demonic beasts and never return to the human world. You're not good enough to scare me away, Jian Wushuang quipped nonchalantly. He, those are some confident words, or should I say, self-flattery. A smile formed on the corner of Emperor Golden Snake's mouth. If that's the case, I shall take your life away today. It'll count as revenge for my son even though it's a month late. Revenge? Or maybe I'll send you to reunite with your son in the netherworld. Jian Wushuang sneered. You can try. A grim-faced Emperor Golden Snake opened his mouth and extended his tongue to lick his lips, resembling a venomous snake. An upsurging aura gradually diffused from his body. Come. With scorching eyes and an eager heart, Jian Wushuang clenched his fists tightly. He had previously exchanged blows with Su Ming, a divine emperor-level expert who possessed Tao enlightenment. At that time, he summoned all of his skill and effort but was nevertheless completely outclassed by the latter, for the gulf between them was too big. However, having gone through several months of cultivation in the monster continent, he was no longer the same as his former self. The current him longed for a life-death duel with a genuine divine emperor. Others may think that it's far-fetched for a Saint Realm expert to duel a divine emperor. But in my case, that isn't necessarily impossible. Let's fight. As Jian Wushuang involuntarily growled, an upsurging battle intent poured out of his body and shook the whole world. Emperor Golden Snake exhaled a breath and made eye contact with Jian Wushuang, producing a tangible flame. The next moment, swish. The figures of both men vanished simultaneously. They went missing at the same time. Heh. Outside the restriction, the spectating divine generals frantically looked over. Before they could discern the figures of Jian Wushuang and Emperor Golden Snake, two figures had already convened in the centermost of the void in the Bloodshed Valley. The triple-kill sword was already in Jian Wushuang's hand. It promptly struck forth with irresistible force. Similarly, the pitch-black machete in Emperor Golden Snake's tight grip struck out. A sword shadow and a blade light instantly collided. The spectators were still frenziedly searching for the two figures when a violent boom erupted. Boom! The sound reverberated throughout the universe like a thunderclap that abruptly sounded from a fine and cloudless sky. Subsequently, the earth and mountains of the Bloodshed Valley began to quake violently. At the point where the collision took place, an almighty power formed into a huge wave which swept unbridled in all directions at an astonishing speed. Buzz! The wave spread downward and instantly sank into the ground beneath the duel. A huge pit with a diameter of nearly 100 zhong appeared in front of everyone.